It's Tuesday, March 14th, 2023. Let's talk about the news. From the New York Times, Biden administration approves huge Alaska oil project. The U.S. government has given formal approval for a sprawling new oil project called Willow in Alaska, and it's also expected to issue a flurry of new rules that would limit future oil leases in the region. The details on those limitation plans are still sparse, but it's believed that the Biden administration is attempting to balance the energy needs of the present, a period in which energy security for the U.S. will in part depend on the country's capacity to pump and refine oil for at least several more decades, with the desire to keep global average temperature increases moderated, something that's more difficult with every gallon of gas pumped and used as fuel. There are other complexities here too, like the fact that the drilling will occur in the U.S.'s largest single expanse of pristine undeveloped land, which isn't a good look and is harmful for local ecosystems, and it's a sensitive issue for local Native American communities and environmental activists who have been campaigning to get young people to speak out online about the project, a project that researchers have warned could put current climate goals beyond reach. There are likely to be legal challenges to this decision, and it'll probably be a while before all the details and legalities and final rulings are worked out. From The Guardian, Gary Lineker to return to Match of the Day after BBC suspension. A BBC Sports commentator named Gary Lineker, who was taken off air for criticizing the language used by the British government when discussing the country's policy on asylum on social media, has been reinstated by the network after several days of disrupted programming and controversy. This scandal didn't get much play outside the UK, but it became a bit of a to-do in local media because the BBC is fairly central to the British media ecosystem and is funded by the government, so issues related to perceived impartiality amongst staff are especially tricky and at times fraught, especially when they touch on British politics. Notable here is that Lineker wasn't punished for similar criticisms leveled at the Qatari government, and that the BBC is currently run by a Tory donor who was once the current Prime Minister's boss at Goldman Sachs. He is currently under investigation because of his lucrative friendship with former Prime Minister Boris Johnson as well. So in essence, Lineker criticized the current government's approach to immigration-related issues, the network panicked that this might lead to government-applied consequences, and a diminishment in their cozy relationship with the governing Tories, but then backed down after a firestorm of criticism and Lineker's colleagues' support of him, in some cases walking off the job in solidarity, which led to a lot of difficult-to-fill airtime. And from Reuters, after Silicon Valley Bank failure, U.S. acts to shore up banking system confidence. Following the rapid collapse of Silicon Valley Bank last week, which was triggered by a bank run, U.S. authorities have announced extraordinary measures to make sure depositors at this and another at-risk bank, Signature Bank, will be made whole as part of a larger effort to avoid a banking contagion in the country. This story, thankfully, seems to be coming to a fairly cozy end for most everyone involved. But the underlying story is that the US government doesn't want its banking sector to seem weak and doesn't want investors to lose faith in that banking system. So they shored things up using an insurance fund set aside for this type of use case. And that allowed them to insure folks with money in the bank, even those with deposits higher than the usual $250,000 government-insured ceiling, had access to their money beginning yesterday. There's a chance we will see some other failing banks collapse in the aftermath of this initial pair of collapses, but it would seem that the short-term risks, at least, have been bulwarked by this bending of typical FDIC policy. If you're finding some value in One Sentence News, consider leaving a quick review wherever you get your podcasts and/or sharing the show with a friend. You can find out more about this show or subscribe to the email version at onesentencenews.com, and you can support this and other related projects like the Let's Know Things and Brain Lenses podcasts at understandery.com.